Gordon Cooper Jr. was a brave and skilled astronaut, almost the stereotype of an all-American good guy. But on one of his missions for NASA, he actually discovered something extraordinary, and none of his colleagues knew anything about it. In fact, it wasn't until well after his death in 2004 that the story finally came out. Leroy Gordon "Gordo" Cooper Jr. was born in 1927 in Shawnee, Oklahoma. Cooper's father was a USAF man who served in both World Wars, which was a clue as to what the future held for his son. When Cooper was less than 9 years old, his dad took him up on a flight and gave him a turn at the controls. But when Cooper graduated from high school in 1945, there were no places available in military flying schools, so he opted to join the Marines. Cooper joined too late to see action in World War II, though, and he was honorably discharged from the Marines. In 1949, he would be commissioned as a second lieutenant in the Army, but he then transferred to the United States Air Force later that year. At last, he was able to begin training as a pilot. After training at the Perrin, Texas and Williams, Arizona bases, Cooper would first see duty in 1950 in West Germany, where he spent 4 years piloting F-84 Thunderjets and F-86 Sabres. Once back in the U.S. in 1954, he spent 2 years earning an aerospace engineering degree. Next, Cooper would head to Edwards Air Force Base, California, to take a course at the USAF Experimental Flight Test School. He was subsequently assigned to the Flight Test Engineering Division as a test pilot. It would be his task to put F-102A Delta Dagger and F-106B Delta Dart jet fighters through their paces. While there, Cooper suggested several modifications to the Delta Dart, which produced significant savings for the Air Force. Then Cooper came across an opportunity that he couldn't miss. He was invited to Washington, D.C. to hear about Project Mercury, the first U.S. manned space mission. It would be run by NASA, which at the time only recently had been formed. Cooper was among the 109 men who were shortlisted as potential astronauts. In 1959, at the age of 32, he was chosen as one of the 7 successful applicants. It would be some time, though, before Cooper got his chance to be rocketed into space. Fellow astronaut John Glenn had the honor of being the first American to orbit the Earth after the Friendship 7 rocket blasted off from Cape Canaveral in February 1962. After that launch, Cooper didn't have too much longer to wait. His first mission came in May 1963 aboard the Faith 7. The interior of the craft was anything but roomy. In fact, one of the criteria for individuals joining Project Mercury was a height limit of 5'11". Any taller and you wouldn't fit inside. This and the fact that the rockets were fully automated led one Mercury astronaut to joke that they were nothing more than spam in a can. Cooper's first spaceflight took him on a record-breaking 22 orbits of Earth, remaining in space for more than 34 hours. Faith 7 covered 546,167 miles at an average speed of 17,547 miles per hour. Cooper also had another first to his name. He was the first American to sleep during a mission. He was actually asleep for over 7 hours, though he later noted that he had no dreams. Cooper's mission was far from incident-free, though. A power failure hit Faith 7 on its 19th orbit, and this soon caused carbon dioxide levels to increase and the temperature to spike inside the capsule. Cooper was forced to take manual control and to navigate by the stars in his wristwatch. Incredibly, he was able to land just 7,000 yards from the aircraft carrier that was to pick him up. On Cooper's next mission in August 1965, he was joined by Pete Conrad, who was making his first spaceflight. The flight lasted nearly 191 hours and set a new record for the amount of time spent in space. The long duration of the mission, lasting just under 8 days, and medical tests performed in flight provided proof that a journey to the moon was possible. Indeed, the Apollo 12 mission would later see Conrad become the third man to walk on the surface of the moon. The next challenge for Cooper, though, was his position as backup commander for Apollo 10. During this mission, the astronauts would orbit the moon in a practice run for a lunar landing. Cooper believed that this would put him in position to take command of Apollo 13, the planned third mission to land on the moon. However, personnel rotation put him out of the running. After this disappointment, Cooper decided that it was time to hang up his spacesuit, and now a colonel, he duly resigned from the USAF and NASA. He went on to work as a technical consultant and businessman. However, he still had a secret that he had learned during his time in space. In fact, Cooper had been looking extremely closely at the Earth while he was orbiting the planet aboard Faith 7. A covert part of his mission had been to search for secret nuclear bases in the Caribbean, most likely operated by Cuba and supplied by America's Cold War enemy, the Soviet Union. Cooper was to achieve this by using a special device that could detect magnetic anomalies, which would indicate the presence of a nuclear base. However, Cooper saw many anomalies that he realized were too small to be bases. Nevertheless, he kept a note of them. Cooper reasoned that at least some of these smaller magnetic anomalies might actually be shipwrecks. Long after his mission was over, he set to work on mapping them, while also researching historic records of the shipwrecks. He then cross-referenced these details, combining the historical information he'd found with the data he'd collected while in space. The story then goes that Cooper passed on his shipwreck map to treasure hunter Daryl Miklos. Miklos would use the map as the basis for his 2017 Discovery Channel TV show, Cooper's Treasure. Cooper and Miklos had shared an office, and the two had apparently formed a close friendship. I think that's why he entrusted me with the chart, or treasure map from space, as well as all the files that went along with it, Miklos told Vanity Fair in 2017. Miklos went on to tell Vanity Fair that he'd already investigated 5 of the sites that Cooper had pinpointed, and every one of them had produced evidence of a shipwreck. And that was just 5 sites out of the hundreds that Miklos said were identified by Cooper's treasure map. Colonel Gordon Cooper will always be remembered as one of the first men in space. However, no one knew until years after his death that there was much more to this story. Indeed, Cooper, who had been a Marine, a test pilot, and an aerospace engineer, had looked down at Earth from outer space and realized that he'd discovered the sunken treasures of a bygone era.